Imagine an empire built on chicken wings, bikinis, and a provocative atmosphere. And then, 42 years later, that empire collapses under $376 million in debt. How did an iconic chain like Hooters go bankrupt in 2025? Today, you discover the mistakes that almost destroyed it and the lessons that every entrepreneur should know. Welcome to this tragic story of meteoric rise, fatal mistakes, and possible redemption at the last minute. Hooters isn't just a restaurant chain. It's a controversial cultural icon who has sparked debates about sexism, entertainment, and business since its birth in 1983 in Clearwater, Florida. Famous for its Hooters Girls, sexy waitresses dressed in tight orange shorts and figure-hugging tops, the brand positioned itself as a playful sports bar where service goes beyond food. It's an experience of light flirting, laughter, and a delightfully tacky yet unrefined vibe. Customers, mostly men, flock not just for the spicy chicken wings or juicy burgers, but for that edgy atmosphere that sells fun and escapism. From humble beginnings, Hooters grew explosively, from a single location to more than 430 restaurants in 42 countries by 2007, generating annual revenues in excess of $1 billion. They expanded their brand into annual calendars with photos of the girls that sold millions of copies. A short-lived airline called Hooters Air, which operated from 2003 to 2006 but failed due to high costs. Casinos in Las Vegas, a reality show in 2005 called The Hooters Dream Girl, and even sponsorships in sports such as NASCAR and golf. At their peak, they employed more than 17,000 people, with a focus on charities such as the fight against breast cancer, donating millions through events. But behind this glamour and controversy lurked deep problems that accumulated over time. In March 2025, Hooters of America LLC filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy in a Texas court, revealing a massive $376 million in debt, exacerbated by massive store closures, a drop in customer traffic, and a market that was evolving toward inclusivity and sustainability. It wasn't just a financial problem. It was an existential crisis of identity in an era where modern Hush Me Too and values questioned the business model based on objectivization. How did Hooters go from being a cultural giant to fighting for its survival, with total assets valued at around $427 million but drowning in debt? In this video, we're going to break it down step by step, with data updated to August 2025, and brace yourself, because this isn't just a story of business failure. It's a brutal lesson in how failure to adapt can bring down even the most provocative and profitable empires. Imagine visionary founders becoming victims of their own success. That's what comes next. Part 1. Boom and Formula for Success. Did you know that Hooters started as a joke between 6 friends who knew nothing about restaurants? But that joke turned into a billion-dollar empire. Let's see how. The year was 1983 in Clearwater, Florida, a coastal city known for its sunny beaches and laid-back atmosphere. 6 entrepreneurs with no formal experience in the hospitality world, Lynn D. Stewart, Gil DiGianantonio, Ed Droste, Dennis Johnson, Ken Wimmer, and Billy Ranieri, decided to open a bar with a bold and controversial concept. Inspired by a trip to a similar establishment in Texas, they invested about $140,000 of their savings and named it Hooters, a name with a double meaning that played on Hooters as owls, their logo is an owl with large eyes, and a slang reference to female breasts. The first location opened on October 4, 1983, coinciding with Pranksters Day in the US, and it was an instant success that no one expected. Why? Because it combined accessible casual food, fried chicken wings with homemade hot sauces, juicy burgers, loaded nachos, and ice-cold beers at affordable prices, like $5 for a dozen wings, with a clear niche of male entertainment. It wasn't a strip club. It was a sports bar where the Hooters Girls not only waited tables, but created symbolic relationships with customers, chatting about sports, posing for photos, participating in dance contests, and selling a light, flirty fun experience that kept visitors coming back again and again. The expansion was aggressive and almost legendary. In less than 5 years, they opened 100 locations across the U.S., thanks to a franchise model that attracted enthusiastic investors willing to pay upfront fees of $75,000 per location. By 1992, they were international, expanding to Singapore, Mexico, and then to Europe and Asia. At its peak around 2007, Hooters operated more than 430 restaurants in 28 countries, with annual revenues exceeding $1 billion. Hard facts to illustrate the boom. In 2006, they sold more than 100 million chicken wings a year, equivalent to enough chicken to circle the earth several times over. And their merchandise, annual calendars with glamorous photos of the girls that sold in millions of copies, branded clothes, toys, and even a line of bottled sauces, generated an extra $100 million in sales. The pillars of success were undeniable. First, a clear niche with entertainment value that differentiated Hooters from competitors such as Buffalo Wild Wings or Applebee's. They did not compete in speed or gourmet variety, but in creating a unique atmosphere where customers felt like they were at a perpetual party. Second, casual and accessible food appealed to groups of friends, sports families, and corporate events, with generous portions that encouraged shared consumption. Third, those symbolic relationships between clientele and staff. The Hooters Girls were brand ambassadors, selected not just for looks but for outgoing personalities, and they participated in national Hooters beauty pageants that attracted massive media coverage. But it wasn't all wings and smiles. From the beginning, Hooters faced controversies that, ironically, fueled its growth. In 1995, they lost a gender discrimination lawsuit when a group of men sued for not being hired as waiters, paying $3.75 million in compensation and agreeing to open unisex roles in kitchen and management. Still, that generated free publicity that reinforced his rebellious image. Did you know that in 1996, Hooters tried to expand into airlines with Hooters Air, flying Boeing 737s with girls on board serving snacks? He lasted only 3 years, losing millions, but he showed his excessive ambition. Can a brand built on controversy survive in a world evolving towards equity? Keep listening, because the red flags started to appear, and they weren't subtle. Part 2. The warning signs. Imagine that your favorite brand suddenly seems outdated. For Hooters, the warning signs started flashing in the 2000s. What ignited them? Let's unravel them. The world isn't standing still. And for Hooters, the first cracks in its provocative armor began to show in the 2010s, when profound cultural shifts began to erode its loyal customer base. The millennial generation, born between 1981 and 1996, and especially Gen Z, from 1997 onwards, prioritized values such as inclusivity, diversity, quality of sustainable ingredients, and authentic experiences over sexist gimmicks. Market surveys from 2015, such as one from Nielsen, showed that 60% of young people viewed brands like Hooters as from another era or problematic, preferring chains like Chipotle, with an emphasis on organic, or Starbucks with neutral environments. This demographic shift was lethal. The typical Hooters customer, men aged 25 to 54, was getting older, and younger people were opting for modern alternatives. Competition grew fiercely and mercilessly. Chains such as Twin Peaks, launched in 2005 in Texas, copied the concept of restaurants, but took it further with even more revealing uniforms, updated menus with craft beers and 4K TVS, stealing market share. Twin Peaks grew to more than 100 locations by 2020, while Hooters was starting to stagnate at around 300. Others like Tilted Kilt and Bombshell's Restaurant and Bar added thematic twists, diluting Hooters' monopoly on the niche. Alarming data that paints the picture. In the summer of 2024, Hooters closed 44 subperforming restaurants in the U.S., citing food cost inflation. Chicken wings rose 25% due to poultry shortages, and customer traffic that fell 15% year-on-year. By 2025, more closures followed, exacerbated by an accumulated debt that already exceeded $300 million. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated this, but the roots were cultural. Customers were looking for experiences that resonated with modern values, not a model that many saw as outdated or even offensive in the post-#MeToo era. breakthrough that will make you pause. Remember when Hooters tried a sponsorship in NASCAR in 2018? It generated massive backlash on social media, with campaigns like #BoycottHooters racking up thousands of tweets criticizing its sexism, resulting in an 8% drop in sales that quarter. That wasn't just noise. It was a clear sign that society was evolving, and Hooters was left behind, clinging to a past that no longer sold. Can a brand survive by ignoring these demographic and cultural changes? The answer comes in the next part, where we will see how they tried to adapt and why they failed miserably. Part 3. Attempts at Adaptation. Desperate to survive, Hooters tried reinventing themselves. But was it enough? Spoiler, it wasn't. Immerse yourself in their failed attempts. By the end of the 2010s, with stagnant sales and critics growing, Hooters launched several attempts at adaptation that, in retrospect, seem desperate and poorly executed. The most notable was in 2017 with Hoots, a family-friendly format designed to appeal to a wider audience. Without the iconic Hooters Girls, instead, unisex waiters in neutral uniforms like polo shirts and pants focused on chicken wings for takeout and delivery. They opened the first one in Chicago with a simplified menu and a clean atmosphere, without the provocative flirtation. The idea was to expand into urban markets where the original concept was frowned upon, but without the sexy hook that defined the brand, it failed miserably. Revealing data, Hoots only generated 2% of extra revenue at its peak, far from the 20% expected, and most stores closed in 3 years due to low traffic. Confused customers asked, "Is this real Hooters?" highlighting the blurring of identity. They didn't stop there. In 2019, they invested $10 million in remodeling existing venues. They added giant sports TVs, modern lighting, and expanded menus with healthy options like organic salads, vegan wraps, and craft beers to appeal to millennials. They bet heavily on delivery partnerships with Uber Eats and DoorDash, promoting wing packages for house parties. But the returns were negative, around -12% in ROI for 2020, due to high platform fees, up to 30% per order, and competition from specialists such as Wingstop or Domino's, which offered faster and cheaper delivery. The central problem was the blurring of identity. How do you reinvent a brand based on sexual provocation without losing its unique essence? They tried to balance with charitable initiatives, such as donating 1% of sales to breast cancer funds, but critics saw it as hypocritical, arguing that the brand contributed to objectivization. In 2022, they tried a subtle rebranding with less revealing uniforms in some pilot locations, but that alienated the loyal base without attracting new customers. Imagine a loyal customer walking into a modern Hoots and asking confused, "Where are the girls and the fun?" That confusion killed the experiment, and internal surveys showed that 70% of visitors preferred the original concept. Is it possible to radically change without alienating your core? Hooters tried with good intentions, but these cosmetic efforts didn't address the core of the problem, and then the pandemic hit, the blow that accelerated the inevitable downfall. Part 4. The Accelerated Fall, COVID, and Other Blows. Then, COVID-19 hit, the death blow. How did a dependent chain of in-person experiences survive, or not, the pandemic? The answer is brutal. March 2020 marked the beginning of the end for many businesses, but for Hooters, it was devastating. Lockdowns forced the closure of dining rooms across the U.S., and the chain saw its revenue drop an impressive 57% in the second quarter of 2020, from $250 million to just $107 million. They relied heavily on crowded bars during sports games, parties, and social events. Without that, delivery couldn't make up for it. Cold, soggy chicken wings don't sell the flirtatious experience that was their hallmark. More than 150 locations were temporarily closed, and dozens permanently in states like California and New York, where strict regulations prolonged the pain. Post-pandemic, in 2021 to 2022, competitors like Buffalo Wild Wings quickly recovered with robust apps, digital marketing, and contactless options. But Hooters, already weakened by pre-existing debt from failed expansions, struggled to recover. Food inflation exacerbated everything. The price of chicken wings rose 20% in 2022 due to global poultry shortages, forcing menu increases that scared away price-sensitive customers. In addition, additional blows such as labor scandals. In 2023, lawsuits for sexual harassment of former employees cost $5 million in settlements, damaged reputations. The final problem was structural. Without its distinctive in-person experience, Hooters was reduced to just food, and in that arena, it couldn't compete with more efficient chains. Did you know that during COVID, Hooters sold virtual dates with girls via Zoom for $20 a session, where they chatted and served virtually? It was creative and generated some buzz, but not enough to save the ship, grossing only $1 million in total. This led directly to bankruptcy, where the accumulated debt became an impossible anchor to lift. Part 5. Bankruptcy and Restructuring. March 2025, the Day of Judgment. With $376 million in debt, Hooters filed Chapter 11. End of the road or rebirth? Let's get to the juicy details. On March 31, 2025, Hooters of America, LLC filed Chapter 11 in bankruptcy court in Texas, disclosing $376 million in debt accrued from failed expansions, pandemic, and inefficient operations. The restructuring plan was bold: a quick sale to a group of loyal franchisees and some original founders for an estimated value of around $427 million in total assets, including the brand, properties, and franchises. To maintain operations during the process, they secured a $40 million DIP, debtor-in-possession, financing, with $35 million in fresh new capital from investors. They expect to emerge from bankruptcy in 3 to 4 months, thinner but alive, with a focus on profitable premises. The closures were abrupt and painful. In June 2025, more than 30 locations in 14 states such as Florida, Texas, and New York closed, without prior notice to employees, generating backlash in networks and labor lawsuits for unfair dismissals. They are seeking court approval for a $6 million breakup fee if a better offer emerges from outside buyers. Rebranding is at the heart of the strategy, an end to controversial events such as bikini nights and beauty pageants. Instead, a family focus with children's menus, expanded charity, donating 5% of sales to local causes, and better quality ingredients such as organic chicken and gluten-free options, reconfiguration of uniforms to a more moderate coastal beach style, long shorts and loose tops, maintaining the delightfully tacky but respectful, with an emphasis on diversity in hiring. The current CEO stated at a press conference, "We will return to the original glory, but adapted to today's world." Imagine Hooters as a family-friendly place for dinner parties with kids. That's the new plan, but critics doubt whether it will work without alienating the base. Key facts: they operate in 184 global markets, but with only 250 active post-closing locations. Can such a controversial brand be reborn in 2025? Time will tell, but the lessons are eternal. Conclusion and lessons. Hooters rocketed in the 80s and 90s, dominating with its provocative formula and generating billions, but fell like a lead in the 2000s, from $1 billion in peak revenues to bankruptcy with $376 million in debt and $427 million in assets at stake. But with this rebranding and restructuring, it could be reborn as a more inclusive version. Let's recap 5 key lessons that every entrepreneur should set in stone. Brand identity must adapt, not stagnate. Hooters clung to the past too long, ignoring that yesterday's tacky is offensive today. Changing demographics dictate the future. Ignore millennials and Gen Z with their values of inclusivity, and you lose entire generations of customers. Differentiation must be enduring and culturally resonant. Sexy worked in the 80s, but in the 2020s it needs to evolve so as not to become irrelevant. Reinvention requires deep transformation, not just cosmetic. Experiments like Hoots failed because they were superficial, without addressing the core of the brand. Debt limits the ability to pivot, prevents unsustainable overexpansions. $376 million drowned Hooters, turning ambitions into chains. This story teaches us that no empire is immortal without constant evolution. If it inspired you or made you reflect on your own business, subscribe to Business Saga for more epic business sagas like this one. Thank you for joining the journey, and remember, adapt or die.